Inscriptions and Social History. An analysis of the epigraphs at Nasik, Karle, Kaneri, Uppukundur, Maikadoni of the Satavahana period revealed that the donors never mentioned their caste, jati or varna. Instead, they mentioned their occupations such as Rajavija, royal physician, Sethi, banker, Manikara, jeweler, Loha Vanija, iron merchant. This portrayal of the professions clearly indicated that the society was not compartmentalized on the basis of fourfold Varna system. People had right to choose the profession by interest and not by birth as ordained by Brahmanical injunction shows that the Satavahana society was an egalitarian one. One inscription at Kanheri refers to a merchant or Vanija who belonged to a Kshatriya family. The Satavahana social order continues during the succeeding Ikshvaku era. The Prakrit language continued to be the language of all Ikshvaku inscriptions, and the society appears to be a highly cosmopolitan which included people from across the world. The way inscriptions speak about only the profession of people but not varnas. The practice of erecting memorial pillars in the memory of royal family members further indicate the continuation of the megalithic burial practices, although performance of Vedic sacrifices is the established norm of the elite society. The inscriptions of the early Pallava and Salankayana periods portray the stages of social transformation in the field of language from the continuation of Prakrit language into the emergence of hybrid Sanskrit. Continuation of Vedic sacrifices and references to protection of Varnashrama Dharma indicate the gradual transition towards the crystallization of not so rigid fourfold Varna social order. Inscriptions on social history. Kshatriyas. The ruling class called Kshatriyas adopted the Gotras and titles. The title of Varman was adopted by the kings, suffixing their names. The Gupta as a family name was known before 300 CE, and the Ikshvar Buddhist statute inscription refers to the gift of Mahadevi, Queen Rajni of Haridasasa, who sprung from the Gupta race. It was a clan of nobility, and as revealed by the Karle cave inscription of the 2nd century AD, which speaks of a Maharathi Agni Mitranakha as being Gautiputra. Till the 2nd century CE, the Guptas did not adopt any Brahmana Gotra. After they became powerful, they adopted Brahmana Gotras. The adoption of superior solar and lunar races and Gotras were adopted by all the political entities of India. The Pallavas claimed themselves to be of Bharadvaja Gotra. In the formation of Kshatriya clan, the royals appropriated the old names and the powerful local chiefs became Kshatriyas with the adoption of Puranic ideology. The inscriptions of the merchant communities, Vaishyas, present about their activities. The merchants had their own quarters called Nagaram in the medieval South India. The merchant guilds of Ayyaol, Manigramam, Nanadesis, Patinne, Visayathar are frequently mentioned in the inscriptions. All those who followed mercantile activities cannot be considered to belong to a single ethnic entity. There existed various groups of merchants and they were organized into a number of guilds. Although the categories of Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras are broad social groups, the complexity of the society is reflected in the inscriptions. The caste groups of left and right hand divisions appear in the medieval period in South India. The professional groups called Kayasthas, Karanas appear in the beginning of the Common Era, and they were professional scribes and various types of merchants such as Satavahas, Apnikas, Naigama and Gandhikas. The position of the pariahs appears to be bad at least from the 13th century. This is evidenced by the references in the medieval text. The last sections of a few medieval inscriptions normally have the curse for not performing a deed and destroying a donation. One inscription mentions that if the executors of an inscription could not perform the duties as assured, they would bear the shoes of the pariahs who pluck grass, which means that they would be pushed to such a lowly position if they do not meet the terms and conditions. An inscription of 1218 CE mentions that those who destroy this donation would give their wife to pariah who mows or plucks grass for the horses. These instances clearly suggest that the pariahs were considered inferior by a section of the society in the medieval period. Many groups of people, including the pariahs, served as slaves, and there are instances where they were sold. The slaves were not exclusively from the community of the pariah community alone. There were slaves in other communities too. Example, Vellan, the farmers. The term Vetian, which refers to a group of pariahs, is mentioned in an inscription of 1487 CE. Inscriptions and economic history. The economic activities include agriculture, cultivation of crops, pastoralism, craft production, trade, and commerce. The political activities too rest upon economic factors, their nature of agriculture, expansion of irrigation, creation of new cultivable lands, and new settlements were undertaken by the kings to increase the income and prosperity of the country. The economy was the backbone. Political enterprises, the conquest of new territories and extraction of taxes and levies supplemented the wealth of the kingdom. The warriors had to be given remuneration, and the construction of temples and involvement of laborers in non-production oriented fields required the supplementation and increase in the carrying capacity of the land. The adoption of rice cultivation in the medieval period appears to have been mainly to support the large number of people. Plunder was also used as a supplementary means to increase revenue in the medieval times. The inscriptions offer information on the multiple dimensions of economic activities. The nature of cultivation and taxations on rice are brought out by inscriptions. The area of the various types of lands under categories such as wet area and dry land are mentioned. The inscriptions mention about the various types of crops and amount of tax imposed on agriculture. An inscription from of the Chora period, Srirangam, mentions about the reclamation of land from the flooding of the Kaveri, raising bunds and planting paddy and sugarcane. The medieval state organization and political, social, economic and cultural development depended upon irrigation system and water resources management. The state as well as local bodies focused on the irrigation system. Inscriptions offered data on the irrigation system. Almost the entire dry interior parts of India from Rajasthan to Tirunelveli depended upon irrigation development, which was the backbone of agriculture. They offered data on construction, repair and maintenance of village tanks. During the time of the Pallavas, many tanks were excavated. The famous Girnar inscription mentions about the digging of tanks.